Well, guys, it's another Friday night and time for the Isiah Factor Uncensored. We're here, as usual, live at LA Bar on Richmond Avenue, and this, sadly, is our final show of the summer, number 10. We want to thank all of you out there who have supported us through this, but we have a wonderful show to address some of the top issues going on right here in our community. Some of our guests include Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick, also Slim Thug, and Paul Wall. So make sure you keep the spot. You got all night long. We have a wonderful show planned. We even got Soccer Louise in the house. Are you staring at me? We have a wonderful show, and as you can see behind me, lots of people in here for the final show of the Isiah Factor Uncensored. And once again, we'd like to thank all of the supporters out there. Now, we're going to begin with some of our top stories right here in Houston and around the country.
We're not issuing marriage license today.
Actually, the United States Supreme Court has authority.
Kim Davis has been arrested, and now she's relegated to 3 hots and a cot in the county lockup. That's until the Kentucky clerk follows the law. You've heard about old Kim, right? She says there's no way in hell her office will give out marriage licenses to gay couples. But now a judge has sent her to jail for violating the law of the land. Now I hear Kim is in cell 234 with a woman named Big Bertha who's braiding her hair nightly and promises to show old Kim the error of her ways. I kid. Let's move on. And as they say on social media, I just can't with this one. Police say 19-year-old DeLeon Smith found a gun and decided to pose with it for social media. The gun goes off and Smith, according to investigators, shoots and kills himself. You just have to ask yourself why. Why would someone want to pose with a gun? You know what? I'm just going to walk away from this one. And finally, our top story. Harris County has been in mourning. This is after exactly a week ago tonight, Deputy Darren Goforth was shot and killed by a suspect who is now behind bars. People are still trying to make sense of it. But Friday morning, a nation of blue surrounded the widow of the fallen deputy at his funeral. But many of us are still asking the question, why? And we're here with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. You have been very involved with the issue involving Deputy Darren Goforth. Yes, sir. It has touched you. It has touched all of Harris County. Yes. Tell me about your feelings on this issue and where you stand.
Well, I think we're at a tipping point, Isiah, in this country. It's a tragedy when an officer loses their life in their duty of what an officer often has to confront: a crime, a criminal, a holdup. But when an officer is attacked and killed in cold-blooded murder, it's something we have not seen in this country very often, and we sure haven't seen in Texas in a long time. And when they have to look around to protect themselves instead of protecting us, it puts them in great danger. We expect so much of these officers, Isiah. We expect them to be perfect 24/7, 365 for their 20-year career. And if they make the slightest mistake, they're either sued, fired, or potentially killed. If we don't turn this around quickly, we're going to find it harder and harder to find the fine men and women who go into law enforcement to do this. Their families will put pressure on them. This has to stop now. And today, as I sat there with Governor Abbott at Second Baptist Church, my home church, my heart broke for Kathleen and her 2 children. But at the same time, it was an uplifting moment. 11,000 people showed up. They lined the streets on the way to the gravesite. And I feel a sense that all Americans and all Texans were rallying around law enforcement. We really must have their back because they have ours, and we have to show it to them every day. Real quick, the incredible kindness at the gas station where he was killed.
Yes.
People have dropped off over $100,000 in donations to the family. And an officer, we're starting to hear these stories. They go and they're at the filling station now, and a citizen comes up and says, "Don't worry about it. I have your back." America and Texas is standing up. It's a sad, sad day, but an uplifting moment, and maybe the tipping point has turned in the other direction.
Now, do we have an issue here in Texas where we already in 2015, we're seeing a record number of law enforcement officers who have been killed on the job? How do you address that as Lieutenant Governor, as a state legislature, as a small community or big community like Houston?
Well, I think we've lost a lot of respect for individuals in our society. Whether it's the era of social media, the coarse language of politics, It starts in the schoolhouse. The lack of respect we have for teachers, the days of yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, and that impacts the way we even treat law enforcement. When I was growing up, when you were growing up, it was yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, even if I didn't think I was speeding. We almost have this confrontational attitude in our society everywhere. It's confrontational in a classroom. It's confrontational in politics. It's confrontational in the street. It's confrontational on social media. You post something and somebody hammers you. And this is pouring over to who we are as a society, and we have to go back to the basic respect. What I share with people is from now on, when you meet an officer, it's yes, sir. It's no, sir. It's yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am. And if there's some grievance, then file it officially and do it the right way. Don't create a tension-packed moment. We forget. Anyone here tonight in this audience of the Raging Cajun, how would you feel if at 2 o'clock in the morning when you're alone and you go up to a car, you don't know who's in it, or maybe it's 3 or 4 people in it, your closest backup is 20 minutes away, and you go up and suddenly someone confronts you? Let me tell you what, your adrenaline gets pumping. Ask any law officer about that. And again, they have to be perfect, and they can go, if they go too far, they can lose their job. And look, in Louisiana 3 weeks ago, it was a drunk in a ditch, and the officer said, hey, just stay where you are. I'm going to help you, and I'm going to get a tow truck. And the guy shot and killed him.
Now,
it's
when we talk about respecting officers,
yes,
what is their role with respecting the community? Because obviously it's a two-way street. And so in some instances, you have bad apples that are out there, and then they create a bigger picture when that issue is covered, and then it paints a whole force in a certain tone. So what about officers also respecting citizens?
We expect the best from our officers, and we have the best, whether it's DPS, HPD, our sheriff's office, constables. I just saw a story in Austin Police Department. They had 3,900 people apply. They only took 450. We try to get the best. And they have their training of how they're supposed to handle every meeting with someone, but sometimes it doesn't go as they were trained, or they were never trained in a particular situation. So we expect them to be the best. We demand a lot from them for a job that doesn't pay enough, that most of them have to work a second job. We expect them to be the best, the best, the best. And every officer I know, they strive to be the best, and if there's a bad apple, they want that person held accountable and out, because it impacts no different than your profession or my profession. You want the best. Bad apples everywhere. But we as the citizens have a responsibility too, and that's not to make their job any harder or any more tension-filled or any more confrontational than it already is.
We have to take a quick break.
Sir.
We'll continue to talk about this with Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. I want to thank you for coming on the Isiah Factor Uncensored. And we'll continue this conversation in just a moment, so stay with us. We'll be back after this. And welcome back to the Isiah Factor Uncensored. Our guest for the last Isiah Factor Uncensored, Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick.
Just the last for the summer. It will
last for the summer. Let's pray together. Let's pray together.
Yeah.
Now, one of the things that we've seen with this shooting in Harris County is a racial divide in our community, especially on social media.
Right.
Have you seen that, and how should we address that as a community?
First of all, I see it in small pockets. I don't think we have a racial divide in this country or in this community, but I do see pockets of people who take to social media where they can hide behind the internet in the shadows, no matter who they are, and attack. Mm-hmm. And that's part of the problem that we have in, I think, society today. That in the past, Isiah, if someone was far afield of rational thinking or hate speech, no one heard them except their few friends. Today, you get a camera, you get your cell phone, you get on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, and suddenly you are spewing that hate to a lot of people. Look, it's really no difference on a totally different issue than what ISIS is doing.
So, but how do you control that? How do you, as an individual who doesn't want to be drawn into a situation where you're feeling hateful towards one race or another, how do you deal with that? Because they're out there, they're going to be there in our community and on social media.
Well, we all have a responsibility as white Americans, black Americans, brown Americans to police up our own. If we have people who are crossing that line, then we have a responsibility to call them out and put an end to it, no matter where that's coming from. Secondly, it goes back to what I talked about in the first segment. We have to go back to being a civil society with civil language of how we treat people. I mean, look at even the spectrum of television shows, the reality shows, people yelling at each other and screaming at each other. It's
become the norm.
It has become the norm, and we're not going to turn this around if that's the way we treat each other. We're all Americans. Bottom line, we're all in this together. We have enough problems with enemies around the world and some who have infiltrated this country. Terrorists who'd like to take all of us out. And you know what? When they kill us, they don't care if they kill you if you're black or you're white or you're brown. They don't care.
Dead is dead.
You're dead because you're an American. So we better figure this out. We better all stand together. And this violence we have in our own communities, this attack now that we have on law enforcement are not the bad guys. If there are bad apples, address it. Law enforcement are the good guys, and most of the public are the good guys. You know, 100% of the crime is calculated to be committed by about 15% or less of the total population. Black, white, brown. Most of us are law-abiding citizens. So let's take care of each other. Let's respect each other, particularly law enforcement, because let me tell you what, if you get people, and we're seeing recruiting come down, if you get enough people to say, I'm not doing this, I'm going to find another profession. If their spouses say, honey, you're not doing this anymore, whether they're husband or wife as a police officer, then what are we going to do? That thin blue line, that thimble full of people who go into this profession, and they're the only, Isaiah, they have the only job title outside of our military who protects us around the world, and our firemen who also have the same responsibility. But police officers are the only ones, when they go to work every morning, as part of their job, they've made a promise to pull their gun and protect your life or my life, even if they don't know us, if we're involved and we're in harm's way. None of us are called on to put our life on the line for a fellow man. We need to give them some room to allow them to be who they want to be, and most of our officers, the vast majority, are good people, and we need to understand that and lift them up.
Passionate about it. I understand.
Passionate. I'm passionate because I'm worried about this.
Final few seconds that we have, we are looking at a market here in Texas, moving on to other issues, where oil and gas, a lot of layoffs. Are there any alternatives that we should be looking at instead of just relying on oil and gas in Texas now? Because all around the country, all around the world, people are now producing oil and gas, and it's not the commodity it used to be.
Yeah. Let me give you a real quick answer because I know time is tight. We are down. Obviously, it's impacting jobs in Houston. But what's interesting, compared to the last downturn and in the 80s when I was in the restaurant business, and 1,200 restaurants closed, and a lot of people in Houston lost their homes and their everything because of the downturn, we were really dependent on it. It's still a big part of our economy. But so far, in June, for example, our sales tax collections, which measure our economy, we're up 5.5% over June a year ago.
So how does that jive, though, with so many people losing their jobs?
Well, a couple of things. Many other areas are booming. Dallas is booming. Austin's booming. San Antonio. We've been hit the hardest here
in Houston.
In Houston, without question. But our economy continues every year to get more diverse. And secondly, $1.99 gas or $2.25 gas puts a couple $100s a month in everyone's pocket. They're going out to restaurants, they're going out to movies, they're spending their money, they're buying things, and that helps balance it. But make no mistake, Texas needs oil and gas to be at least $60 to $70 a barrel for our economy to be really going.
Pray on that.
We're going to pray on a lot
Lieutenant Governor
of
Dan Patrick, I want to thank you for coming on the Isaiah Factor Uncensored. And we'll be back in just a moment. Dave, do you have that shot? Slim Thug and Paul Wall, along with Rico Boss Life. They're coming up next on the Isaiah Factor Uncensored. Stay with us. We'll be back. And welcome back to the Isaiah Factor Uncensored. As I said at the beginning of the show, an all-star lineup. We've had Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick. Now we have Paul Wall and Slim Thug. thank you guys for coming on the Isiah Factor Uncensored. The final show of the summer.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you for having us, man.
Now, you guys have heard you live here in Houston.
Right.
You realize what's going on in the community. When you saw the shooting involving Deputy Darren Goforth, what was your response and your feelings on that, Paul?
First of all, I thought that, man, it was stupid to do that because now it's going to be police on every corner pulling people over. You know, if there was harassment, it's only going to get worse. I don't think, you know, shooting an officer in cold blood is going to stop any of that. You know what I'm saying? So I was shocked, and it was upsetting too, just because, you know, coming from not too far from where that happened, you know, living in that area, it's like, man, you know, we don't want to see that type of stuff going on. You know, we want to change in the system, but, you know, I don't want to change that way. You know, we want it the right way. We want change go around, you know, come around the right way. You feel me? Not like that. But, you know, it's sad, though, to see that, man.
Well, Slim, from your perspective, you're on social media, you're in touch with the community, you're here in the community. When you hear Paul say there could be police harassment, is that something real in Houston? Is that something real in Harris County?
That's very real in Houston. And I think that coming from different point of views, people look at police a different way, or even police look at us a different way. Like, I'm sure as tall as I am with tattoos or whatever, like he was saying, some people might be scared for their life, and I think that's what the problem is. I think we both scared. I think you got a citizen who probably like me, who rap and do the right thing and get money or whatever, you know, but immediately off appearance, a lot of officers assume that we could be dangerous to them, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So we become in fear for we be thinking like, oh man, we seeing what's going on Instagram and on the internet, and we scared too. I think everybody's scared. I think it's the people who getting pulled over scared and the officers scared. So it's like it's a bad situation, man. It's just, I feel like if it was more, you know, cameras, like they say, like on the police, you know, we could really get the real story, you know, not from a long distance, you know what I'm saying? Because it can look bad, you know, from a long distance, and it might not look like what it really is, but at the same time, if the police had the cameras up close and we would get the whole story, I think it'd be a better understanding.
Now, from my perspective, I've been on social media and I see what people are posting. When you look online, there's black on this side and white on this side when it comes to this most recent shooting. Right. Have you seen the same thing, and what has it been like for both of you reading these posts on social media?
Like I said, it's point of views, you know, like I'm from the streets, so I done been harassed by the police. I done seen that happen, you know. But like I say, I got friends who have family that's police officers. I've been a rapper for 17 years. I work with police officers, but I know a lot of good ones. It's just like you say, bad apples in certain bunches, just like it's bad people, and some people just law-abiding for the most part, I think it is. But I think that's the biggest issue. People are just scared of each other. I think we need to figure out some type of way where we can understand each other, and you know, and it don't feel like it's so much tension. You know, when we meet, we should feel more like I'm talking to you. Like, you know, I should feel more comfortable when I see a police officer. I shouldn't have to feel nervous. You know what I'm saying? Even when I ain't do nothing. You know.
Real quick, Paul, what's your response on that? How can we bring the communities together?
Like Slim said, it's like there's different points of view, there's different worlds we live in. Like there's a world where there is some cops that are good, you know, stand-up cops, they treat you with respect. Just like it's a world where there's people that get pulled over that is, you know, are respectable and stand-up type people. But one thing that gets forgotten is that there's definitely a world where there's police manipulating the system, sending people to jail for things they didn't do, putting crimes on people that they didn't do, mistreating people, police that are completely disrespecting people when they pull over, handling you, treating you just like, you know, like you're a terrorist when all you're doing is just getting pulled over. And, you know, so there's different type of worlds that, you know, get lost up, you know what I'm saying? We got to try to, you know, realize that, like Slim say, man, it's different perspectives. These got to come together and, you know.
Well, both of you guys have a lot of things going on. We're going to talk more about that when we come back with the Isiah Factor Uncensored. More with Paul Wall and Slim Thug in just a moment. Stay with us right here on the Isiah Factor Uncensored.
And welcome back to the Isiah Factor Uncensored. Our guests in our final show of the summer, Paul Wall and also Slim Thug. Now, you guys both have a lot going on. You have an album coming out really soon. You also had your own day in Houston most recently after giving back to the community. You excited about that?
I'm real excited about that, man. I'm proud of that, man. My boy Slim got a day, too. You know, it's something where now we have a designated day every year where we can give back. You know what I'm saying? We look forward to that every year.
Shout out Mayor
shout out to the mayor.
being
What's up,
so
baby?
cool and open-hearted with all that.
Yeah, good looking
Now,
out.
it's your birthday weekend. You
Yes,
came
sir.
here, you took a break from all the parties to come
I did.
sit with us here on the Isiah Factor. And also, you recently released an album. Tell me a little bit about that.
Hog Life Still Surviving. Right now, I got a song on the radio with Joel Osteen that's been doing pretty
Church.
good. Yeah, man, we just, trying to send out a positive message out here, man. Just keep the peace out here, man. That's it.
So if people want to learn more about Slim Thug, where do they go? What should they do?
The best thing to do is follow me on Instagram, probably, because anything else, I'm probably bad at keeping up with it, but I'm pretty active on Instagram. It's Hog Life 101, so
Okay. And what about you, Paul?
Paul Wall Baby, at Paul Wall Baby. Hit me up on that for sure. At Paul Wall Baby.
All right, thanks, guys. Want to appreciate you for coming on the Isiah Factor Uncensored final show, number 10. And we want to thank you guys for all your support through 10 weeks of Isiah Factor Uncensored. It has been a great run. We'd like to thank all management at Fox 26. Good night.